What's up, all you John Semper Jr. loving dudes and dudettes? ToyShiz here, and I'm back yet again to give you guys another Retro-Shiz look back at the past, and we're heading all the way back into 1997 for the Spider-Man the Animated Series wave, Electro Spark. Yes, the villain of the hour, Electro, got his own wave, so to speak, complete with 3 crazy-looking Spider-Man figures, all complete with various oddball weapons. Heck, even the first Avenger, Captain America, made his Spider-Man animated debut. He also, appeared on the animated series, which is kind of cool. So it went hand in hand. Electro, we'll get to him in just a second. But this is a very unique wave, very odd wave, we'll just say. Threw me for a loop as a kid. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a nice hot cup of coffee. This is the Retro-Shiz look back at the 1997 Spider-Man the Animated Series wave, Electro Spark. And speaking of Spider-Man the Animated Series, head on over to Instagram and check out Rebob I'll put a link in the description below. He's working on some customized heads. Lizard here, as you can see, looks like he walked right out of the old cartoon show. I'm definitely digging it. He's got a couple more in the works, so head over to Instagram, check him out, check out his work, and maybe even see about getting one for yourself. But now, here's Electro Spark. Speaking of Electro Spark, what better way to start off the figures than with the actual Spider-Man that shares the same name as the wave, the Electro Spark Spider-Man. Real sparking action, and I'll get to that in just a second, but a really nicely detailed figure, lots of little sculpting elements here and there, very pre-posed, but I like the color scheme for this guy. He's got some very biomechanical, almost like Deathlock looking suit elements to him. Very much a Stark Spider-Man, none of that webbing, black webbing and things like that. So it would be counted as a Spider-Man figure, but it looks like his Electro Spark armor. Hey, imagine that. But he's got little gauntlets, little pistols, things on his wrists. Very cool mechanical spider. Very nicely sculpted detail. A lot of articulation on this. Hooks onto his back and then around his waist. It's an oddball accessory, and so is his giant 80s vest that he's got going on. But it's a very cool looking Spider-Man, I will say. And as far as the sparking action goes, I swear to you, I got it to work. Of course, right before I started shooting, but you'd pull down on this little ripcord right here, and I just can't get this thing to work. But imagine it yourself, it just lights up. And nothing's better than his sweet 80s music video slash football harness that goes over his shoulders. The backpack hooks onto his back and his neck. This is basically what you do with it. You can grab Electro and electrocute him or pull the power out of him. I don't know. Anyways, moving on. Moving from Sparks now to Shocks. Another interesting Spider-Man, of course. This is the Electro Shock Spider-Man. Yeah, we're way to confuse the kids there, Toybiz, especially when they're calling Target and asking for these figures on the shelves. Not that I did that, of course, but the Electro Sparking element is actually in this figure, and we'll get to that in just a second. Just spoilers. Don't expect anything grandiose. These figures are old, of course, and again, pulling on the ripcord, trying to make this work. This is one that I did not get to work again, unfortunately, but again, imagine it yourself. He does come with all this super steeled out armor. Very cool, very interesting armor, I will just say. You simply just clip each of the boots onto his legs. It just kind of pegs right in there, and then voila, you slip the old face mask on him, and you got one heck of a mechanized Spider-Man ready to do battle with Electro. Nothing says ready to do battle with electricity than some nice metal-plated armor, right? Spider-Man, I thought you were a scientist here, but he does get elevated quite high. Interesting back to him. Not a whole lot going on. Would have liked more like a shell sort of deal. And trust me, this is not the first time where a figure has had a ripcord that has some sort of electrical element. But even the Human Torch is looking at this guy going, huh? Hey, you know who's not a Spider-Man figure? Captain America, of course, and he's the next figure up in this Electro Spark wave. Good old Steve Rogers himself makes his, well, my Spider-Man collection action figure debut. A really nicely colored Captain America. I got to give it to him on that. Very reminiscent of his appearance on the X-Men animated series final season. More or less, a little bit darker. The one on animated Spider-Man was a little bit brighter in colors, but this is kind of like full-blown comic book Cap, and I appreciate that. I like this guy a lot. Came with 2 accessories. One of them, the worst thing in the world. This is the tiniest, Captain America Frisbee shield I've ever seen. Also has the electro sparking effect. So he comes with a shield, hovercraft, carrier, platform / armor. Really nicely sculpted details. A lot of articulation on this, oddly enough. With his shield, though, it's just not happening. It's never happened. It's just so missized and everything else. He holds it like a gun sort of deal, as you can see it from the side. Of course, kudos to them for putting the electro spark effect in the shield. It's actually a cool effect, and we got one to work. Hey, how about that? But in putting him on his shield carrier, that actually works really well. His boots just kind of slip into the feet holders. He's doing his best Hobgoblin impersonation. And as you can see, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. Both flying on flying wings, but even Hobgoblin's like, that's my shtick, bro. If you didn't want to go the Hobgoblin route, well, you could fasten it over him and create a Captain America armor. If you wanted to go like space, or maybe he's flying around. Either case, he's trying to zoom and stop Electro with Spider-Man. With all the armors, it does look good. I actually really like this. This does look pretty awesome. And hey, did you know that this is not the first time we saw this Cap? He was in a 2-pack with Bucky under the American Heroes. He also showed up with the most terrible shield ever in the Secret Wars 8-pack, and they also retooled him a bit for the Avengers United They Stand cartoon series wave. A couple different things here and there. New belt, new head, and a new shield. One that actually functions properly. Doesn't light up, of course, but it does fit him well. Nice colors, nice big bulky body going on. Like the shield, like the effects. Great Captain America. Highly recommend him. Of course, next up is the Scarlet Spider from this wave. Actually, wait, no, it's the Steel Shock Spider-Man from this wave. Just kidding. And if I haven't confused you yet, well, unbeknownst to me, and I didn't know this until a few years ago, even Scarlet Spider's like, what you talking about, Willis? Well, back in the 90s, Joe Wade was kidnapped and put into a holographic projection type machine by the female Dr. Octopus, and he became a biometrical hologram known as the Steel Scarlet Spider. And then it malfunctioned, and then he actually became this. So this is the Joe Wade Scarlet Spider from the comics. So someone at Toybiz really liked this character, or they were just flipping through going like, well, let's create some kind of robotic Spider-Man, and bingo bango, there you go. And it actually is a pretty cool character, despite having wangs on his arm. Yeah, you see that now, right? I mean, didn't know this back in the day when I was a little kid, seeing this on the store shelves, because I completely was like, Spider-Man wouldn't wear that in the animated series. Well, you got yourself a brand new character from the 90s. The shock thing is on his back, and guess what? It actually works. Just kidding. But it was actually a lot of fun kind of seeing this guy years and years and years later and going like, oh, this is actually a character from the comics. That's really interesting that they put him in. And it's got some great sculpting, very pre-posed, very much like, hey, who's underneath the mask? Yes, the helmet is removable, and underneath the mask is Spider-Man. It's a very confused figure as to who he wants to be, where he wants to be, but yes, this is the Joe Wade Scarlet Spider. A very cool figure, very nicely detailed, nicely sculpted, nicely painted, and one that I would say, hey, you know what, if you're a fan of all that 90s Spider-Man insanity, you're definitely going to like this figure. And of course, this brings us to the final figure of the wave, the main reason we're all here with our armors and everything else, Electro. And it's a very interesting looking Electro, and we'll get to that in just a second, but interesting sculpt, very, very pre-posed. He's doing like the walk like an Egyptian kind of thing going on. He's got this giant Spawn boot, really just as a kid left me going like, what? Even Spawn's like, bruh. In the Spider-Man the Animated Series, towards the very end of the series, we did get Electro. However, it turned out it wasn't Maxwell Dillon, the Electro we always knew. It was the Red Skull's son, Reinhold Kragov, which even then I was like, I know Electro's Max Dillon. It just weirded me out as a kid, and then even seeing this figure, it weirded me out anymore. He's just a very armored Electro, so whether it's Kragov or it's Maxwell Dillon, you pick. But still, it's a very fun-looking action figure. I gotta give it to him on that. He did come with 2 accessories. One, of course, Electro Sparked, and the other, even as a kid, again, it just perplexed me. It's an arm cannon that didn't really do anything. It just kind of fits over his hand. It looks like multiple different guns or whatever it is. It just fits on both of his hands. It does look cool. It's sculpted well. It's painted interesting. And yeah, you can still do the walk like an Egyptian kind of thing going on with him. His electric lightning bolt was actually pretty fun. It had a ripcord on it. You would want to go ahead and pull it. And it did have peg holes for his feet so he could be riding the Thunderbolt. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool. On the bottom, just a bunch of screw holes and all the different information from the line. But this is another one where, yes, to this day, you still pull the ripcord and bingo, bango, it works. There is a variant of this figure. It's a yellowed Electro, just much more yellow than he is gold for this original figure. And if you got Red Skull and the Chameleon, well, then you could definitely make it a family affair, or you can do the classic Sinister Six. You pick. So whomever is under the mask, Reinhold, Maxwell, it doesn't really matter. It just makes for a cool looking Electro figure and a very cool looking wave itself. It's different. It's totally Toybiz. It's very much 90s. And I like the sparking effect. That's a very cool play feature for kids. I enjoyed it for back in the day. But I'm curious to know what you guys think about this particular wave of Spider-Man figures. Did you have them? Do you need to get them now? Comment below, let me know. Let's talk everything Spider-Man the Animated Series. I, for one, I'm excited to see. The 90s is gradually making a return, and, you know, there's some new Marvel Spider-Man the Animated Series quote-unquote figures coming, so who knows what the future might bring. But I'm going to leave you guys with that. As always, drink some great coffee, eat some great food. But most importantly, remember, I swear to God I got this thing to work. Why won't it work? Come on. And when you do, let me know what you found. I'll talk to you guys soon. Adios.